Hello and welcome to the ECIST Bitesize podcast series. My name is Lucy Barnett. I'm an improvement manager with ECIST, and today I'll be talking to the team from St George's about the work they're doing in their transfers with Care Hub, and specifically how they're using the hub to support admission avoidance. Today I'm joined by David, Catherine and Lewis from the Trust. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm David McCall. I'm the Divisional Nurse Lead for Discharge and Flow.
Hello, I'm Catherine Hill. I'm the Deputy General Manager for the Emergency Department.
Hello, I'm Lewis Jackson. I'm one of the patient discharge facilitators.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today. Before talking about the work you've done, David, perhaps you could say a few words about the context here at St George's, and specifically a bit about what prompted you to try something different.
So I think, like everywhere at the moment, we have a very, very busy emergency department. And with a busy emergency department comes the need to discharge as many patients as possible to create flow through. This project came about because of the high number of DTA patients that we've been holding in the department. Sometimes it's been as high as 60, which is a lot of people to be holding in an emergency department. We've had a role for patient discharge facilitators who are non-clinical members of staff around the hospital for a little while, supporting our existing discharge coordinators. They do a lot of admin, chasing people up, supporting patients, getting in contact with social services, all those necessary steps that are important in getting people out. And we had a thought that actually we could probably do that with some of the patients waiting in ED, because unfortunately with high numbers of DTAs comes long wait times. So some of these patients were in our department over 24 hours, which we know as a trust isn't acceptable. But we realised that some of these patients probably had fairly quick turnaround times, and we introduced the role to target those patients and actually get them out of the hospital before they're admitted into a formal bed. And that's how it came about, and that's where we are with it.
Amazing, thank you so much, David. Lewis, you're a discharge facilitator working at the front door. Could you tell us a little bit about your role?
Yeah, so before I started the A&E role, I was working in the wards, so I've been doing that for about a year. So what I'm kind of have a good knowledge of the social side of things, and I'm kind of taking that into the emergency department now. So I quite often I'll link in with the nursing coordinators who are kind of overseeing what's happening in the department, and they'll let me know about any patients that might be able to go home if we can. Maybe it's just one thing that needs to happen before they go home, that sort of thing. And I also link in with the patient flow coordinators who let me know similar kind of things when the nursing staff are really busy. Another thing that I do is I'll screen through all the notes of the patients in the department, looking for social things that I might be able to help. Basically, just looking for anything that can avoid admission for the patients, that sort of thing. And then I'll also have a list of the patients that I'll send through to Catherine and David, just to let them know what's going on in the department. So if there is anything that needs escalating, they're always supportive with that. And then we're also, I share the job with another of my colleagues, Tarani, who we do one of us is in every day of the week. And we both cover the acute medical unit as well. So for anyone that we're not quite able to discharge from ED, we're able to pick that up and hopefully discharge them a day or two later from our AMU unit.
Thanks so much, Lewis. Catherine, can you describe the impact you're seeing as a result of having discharge facilitators at the front door?
Thank you. So it's kind of broken down into three parts. The biggest impact is that we are avoiding unnecessary admissions, which is really key. So downstream, our capacity remains for the patients that need to come into hospital. But of these patients that Lewis is picking up early in the morning, he's ensuring that the right patients getting the right care in the right environment. So if there is one more thing that can take place in the ED footprint, Lewis and the team ensure that it takes placed there, and then the patient can be discharged home, which is the best place for that patient, undoubtedly, if that's what medically is suitable for them. The second the biggest impact that I think we've seen as a result of this project is the strong working relationships with other departments outside of ED, because I think when ED is overwhelmed with 60 DTAs, it can very much feel like ED's the centre, or very much consumed by everyone needs to think about these DTAs in the hospital. But actually, what we've really seen from this project is that our working relationships across the hospital have really improved with like OPEL, STAR, our outpatient clinics, contacts in those departments, and they're really on board with coming down into ED within the physical footprint of ED, and seeing patients, reviewing them, turning them around in a really timely manner, so that when Lewis is reviewing the patients within the next couple of hours again, we've got a clear update and a clear plan for when we can get them home later on that day. And the third biggest impact that we've seen or result of the project is the really joint working between the front door and the back door of the hospital. So the ED team with the discharge team have face-to-face communication with the nurse in charge about four or five times a day. I think it would be fair to say Lewis is down in ED physically with the nurse in charge. And before this project, I don't think we had that level of working relationship with the discharge team within ED. So those are the biggest impacts that this project's had so far. I'm sure we'll see more going forward, but for now, that's probably a summary.
That's amazing, Catherine, and it's really exciting actually to hear what a tangible difference what you're doing is actually having on patient care and relationships and flow. Lewis, what have the patients fed back about this new way of working?
Yeah, I've heard good things from patients, and from the nursing staff in the department. They're always telling you when you turn a patient around and say, oh, they're really happy to be going home, that sort of thing. I think it's understandable, because it's obviously a much better patient experience if they don't need a prolonged hospital stay. Then they can just go straight home from ED to a more comfortable setting for them. So yeah, it's been all good so far. I think it's been good for the patients.
That's really positive, and testament to the value of what you're doing for patients. Catherine, for listeners interested in trialling similar models, what would you say has been your key learning, and do you have any top tips for implementation?
So I would suggest that you need to work out who your key and people are to link in within the ED team. So Lewis was really quick off the mark to work out that the nurse in charge, the coordinators, are the key people within our ED team, because they have an oversight of every single patient in a particular area. Within St George's Hospital, we particularly work on bed numbers. So Lewis knew really quickly that if he wants to engage, have that strong working relationship with the nurse in charge, just communicate via bed numbers, not patient initials, not who's this person down the corridor and over there. Like, that's not really going to work too well. So every hospital has their own way of working. Some hospitals use NHS number over hospital number more, but work out what that key kind of theme is that people communicate with. And I think that's a really good way to get people on board. Making yourself available face-to-face within the department. A lot of ED service departments have external calls, phone lines, so everybody's phoning that phone line into ED. And if you have another phone call into ED is quite tiring sometimes, but having the facilitator come down, make face-to-face contact with the nurse in charge, that goes a long way often, and it saves that phone ringing off the hook. So those are my two kind of key areas of how to build up the project really quickly. And I suppose also a clear SOP, so standard operating procedure, always it helps, because then everyone knows what is in their scope of the role that they're being asked to do, and they can follow it with reassurance that they're fulfilling their role completely. So very early on, David and I jotted down a bit of a plan about what we thought each person with it, the key stakeholders of this project, needed to complete, at what time of the day and what rounds that they had to join and which meetings they had to attend. And then that just ensures that there's a bit of structure to everybody's role so that the greatest output's being produced.
Thanks, Catherine. That's really helpful. Some really practical tips, and I think the bit about sort of clarity of roles and responsibilities and understanding what makes people tick and what motivates people is really important. So thank you so much. David, finally, do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, we've been very lucky at St George's because we've brought this kind of role in. It's been supported with some additional therapy funding because we've already got therapy teams that reach into the ED and some additional funding for social care. So there's additional social workers. So we've got those links. We have social workers on site, which helps hugely because our facilitators can just pop up a corridor, pop up some stairs and have a conversation about patients who are in the ED. And there's somebody here on site Monday to Friday that can come and see that patient straight away. Also, this is still new to us and it's a bit of a developing role. We're about to kind of roll in a bit more for the facilitators around the screening of patients, how we document that, how we then use that going further into the patient's admission to then inform earlier discharge plans, because we know that we should be starting the discharge of all the patients as soon as they come in the front door. It's very easy to say that. It's not always very easy to do that when you have a pathway where people go to ED, to AMU, to a downstream ward, and maybe another downstream ward. And so we're building in other pieces of work around this role, and that's been really, really helpful for us. And we're hoping that we're going to have a system where actually the facilitators are sending off documents straight to social services for some of the common delay reasons. You know, certainly for us in Southwest London, it's key safes being installed, it's problems with utilities, problems with property access, deep cleans. And if we can pick those up as soon as the patients come in through the ED, the social work teams are able to deal with them early, and it just is one less barrier to discharge when it's time for that patient to go home. So it's certainly something that we can really see the potential with, and something we're going to keep building on going forwards.
Thank you so much. So thank you, David and team, for joining us today to talk about the exciting work you're doing at St George's. And we're really excited to continue watching your progress and seeing what you achieve. Please do visit our YouTube channel, ECIST1, for the rest of our Bitesize podcast series.